thing with video, you gotta show better on Google to get more calls.
Everybody
Y'all
always
know
nice
that,
and
but-
kind.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Leading IE Podcast. Today, I got Raymond Olivarez. I've known him for a long time. We met through EO, through the Chamber, through BNI. BNI, actually, I think was the first one you came to through Derek.
Yeah, I think we met through
And
Derek and
then-
BNI.
Yeah, and then hung out in EO and a bunch of things since. Video editor, does great work, did some amazing interviews for my Night for Vets nonprofit, and the event stuff, right?
Yeah, I just want to just establish I consider ourselves a video strategist.
Okay.
So there's a lot
Okay.
of differences that people don't necessarily think of.
Yeah.
I always have to explain to people like the difference between like video editor, videographer, video strategist, and then even video marketer, which is like the next level.
Yeah.
But each level is like you add on a separate skill set.
Okay.
Editing is a art form in itself,
Right.
right? You need to know how to do a good edit, and you need to do story. Then there's videographer, which they know how to do the cameras, they know how to do the editing,
Set all our lighting like we just spent 30 minutes doing. Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
all the little details to get it good.
Yeah.
A videographer can do that, which is like camera op work plus video editing and putting everything together. Then video strategy is the next step, is like, okay, well, you have the technician skills of getting a good shot and putting it together.
Right.
The next step is, okay, what do you do with it?
Right.
How does this help in a business strategy?
Yeah.
Whether-
Try not to smack the table.
Oh, sorry.
Dong.
I talk with my hands. My
I can
girlfriend.
talk about them up here.
That's a good. My girlfriend's always like, "Why do you always talk with your hands? Like you're about to hit someone." I'm like,
Because it's how I do.
I don't even know.
Yeah. It
It's
just
my
is.
automatic, but that's good. No, I won't touch the
Yeah,
table.
Now you're going to be struggling with your hands all the
now
time.
I'm like thinking about
Just
what to
put
do
your
my
elbows
hands.
down and use your hands.
Yeah, Dr. Evil style.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so the level of like specific knowledge of what to do with that video, just like simply of how to distribute it, where to place it,
Yeah.
and what's problem is it actually solving for a business. Then video marketing is like the next step of, okay, I know where to put the video for them.
Yeah.
Now, how do we get it into a bigger marketing strategy with the email, with the ads, and so on and so forth. So it tends to get more and more. So basically technician versus strategist. And I like to think of myself starting as a technician, falling in love with the trade, and then becoming more of the strategist and marketer.
Yeah.
Because I took years to figure out what the hell the word marketing means.
It's an ongoing process, but
Yeah, as I've learned, I'm like, once I opened that book, I'm like, oh, shit.
there's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
And-
There's a lot. And that's and yeah, and it goes into the business, like customer service level and all that, which we're not going to get into. See, I just warned you about that. Not get into. But okay, so that's a cool setup for me, because one of the things I want to talk to you about is in your videos that you put out, which are fantastic, like where you're educating people and doing shorts, like you and I both do. One of the things that I've heard a few times from you that I love is kind of talking about telling the story
Mhm.
and how that's laid out. So I think that's be something that's really valuable to our viewers is what should they be thinking about when they're, and obviously they should be using somebody like you, but some aren't. Some people, like the first thing I tell them, just use your phone and start, at least get started, right? At least get an idea of what you want, try it, fail, whatever. But when they're kind of thinking about what types of videos they want to create for their business and what kind of story do they want to tell for their business, what kind of things should they be thinking about?
Well, one, if you don't have anything to do, like you don't know what you're doing, and you just need to get something present, like 100%, pull out your phone and just start and share a story that resonates with you and or resonates with a client that you've shared with. I always tell people, when you're looking at the lens of a camera, imagine you're talking to that client you've helped,
Mhm.
that one person, and what would you say to them on a daily basis? You're talking to them already.
Yeah.
Like, how are you helping them? And just start there.
Hmm.
It's a good framework, and it helps people get comfortable.
Yeah.
First and foremost, of like just getting in front of the frame,
Right,
the
right.
camera.
Yeah. And that's why I tell them just grab your phone, because like that's the first part. It's so awkward to talk to nobody, but to know in your mind you're talking to everybody, essentially, right? Like it makes it really uncomfortable for people. So I'm like, just try to get past that part where you kind of get past that roadblock of camera shy, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And some people, I was like, you don't have to post them. Just record yourself doing it once a week to build a habit and to get past that part. And like, you don't even have to post them. But if you do post them and you're in the beginning, I forget which book I was listening to, but they're like, nobody's really watching those first ones anyway. So it's your chance to make mistakes, right?
Absolutely. And the beautiful thing about like social media and stuff like that, since that's kind of like the framework we're going with right now, is if you post a bad video, no one's going to see it because the algorithm will say it suck and it won't show it to your viewers.
Yeah, nobody's going to like it. Nobody's going to share it. The algorithm's not going to care then. And then you're fine. It's just practiced. Right?
Absolutely. You're just practicing constantly. And I actually had a client who told me, like, if you're not embarrassed of the first thing you posted, you waited too long to post. If you took too long to start that business because you're waiting for the perfect time, and you were waiting to not be embarrassed, you took too long. Typically, you're going to be embarrassed of V1. Version 1.
Yeah, and some of them, like I look back and I wasn't embarrassed at the time, but I'm definitely like now, like, oh man, there's so, you learn so much over time. And again, I'm not a videographer. I'm more on the marketing side, right? And we do our own thing for our own, but like you even had to come through and like redo all the cameras for it, right? All the settings in the cameras because I don't have any idea. I put everything on auto and cross my fingers. But yeah, going through that and you learn so much doing it by yourself and using somebody else that it changes so much over time. And if you're using somebody else, and like we film some of our clients for our monthly articles for them, and every time I tell them like, look, it's going to suck, it's going to be awkward, but each time you're gonna be a little more comfortable, a little more comfortable, a little more comfortable until you're just talking to me. And that's when the good videos will start.
Yeah, 100%. And when it comes beyond like going into the next stage, when you realize you can just pick up the camera and start, or pick up the phone and start, the next step is, okay, right, like you said, like the story, what should we be thinking about, what type of stuff? And when I'm working with someone who wants to get to that next level to use video for the business tool, right? I think of two different things: defensive and offense, right? And defensive videos are things when you have your ideal client come and like research you, for example, right? When they come to you, they're coming to learn if you can help them, and they need to understand why. They need to understand what exactly you do. So there's story involved with your business, right? Why did it get started? Why are you solving these problems for these people? And it's just like they're talking to you in person. I don't like to get stuck in the strategy of like what makes a story like good, because there's like
the whole story arc.
Yeah, the story arc. There's tons of things out there where it's like you start with establishing the main character, there's a problem that needs to be solved, right? And then the comes across a guidance of a Jedi, so to speak, or a master, right?
He's talking about storyboard.
Yeah, great. Yeah, story
brand.
Story brand. Well, they just follow the natural arc of a story, right?
And then something falls apart.
Yeah.
And it all goes to shit. And then somehow it comes back and everybody's happy again, generally. Right?
Yeah, generally. And if you place your business as the guide, right?
Yeah, not the hero.
Not the hero, that's a good story to think about.
Yeah.
And that's what like we kind of help, but you already naturally have that because you have your story of why you're deciding to help these people and where they're at, what their problems are, how you can solve them.
Yeah.
And just starting with that, like you put them as they're this person here that needs help with X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And you help them solve it, X, Y, and Z.
How you guided them through this.
How you guided them through it. And then the next step is, where do they go? And with coming back to like the defense, right? We want to make sure on the site, right? You're either reading it through the copy or you're putting a main video on there to help with SEO strategy, help, just clarify what their brand is.
Yeah.
And so I always think of like, if your main site, your defense can tell who you are, what you do, why you do what you do, and what makes you different, what makes your practice unique, then you've solved a majority of what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And then where to go to next. How do I get more information?
So having that defensive strategy is amazing. And before you jump into the offensive side, I just want to see if you feel the same way. The more I started trying to mess with video and watch stuff and try to break it down to an extent, the less interested, I should say, I became in movies and TV. Right? Like
Really?
knowing the story arcs, knowing it all kind of follows a formula. I took a tour at Warner Brothers and seeing actually the warehouse, like the giant hangars that have the sets, and seeing how every room is actually one of these little setups. It's neat from a engineer standpoint or whatever they might work, right? But then it kind of really took away the illusion for me when I'm watching TV, because I'm picturing like I'm looking at the set in the background, I'm seeing the trees, I'm like, that's just a fake tree with a light on it. And like it just really subtracted from my attention from these movies. Like, I don't know, it
Mm.
kind of broke it for me.
It's funny because I found the opposite as I learned more about filmmaking and
Mm,
how things work and how the story goes. I find it fascinating when people A, break the rules,
mm,
and then B, how they do things. I love when I see a story told in a unique way through the different types of lenses they use
okay.
and the different frames. So there you can go even more in depth of how you tell a story with a different lens exactly. So there's different focal points that cause a different look for
Hmm.
a lens. You have wide, medium, and close up type of lenses, but you can get a wide, medium, and close up shot with a wide lens.
Mm,
But a wide lens makes you look larger than life, and it makes you feel up close and personal. Think of like if you had like a sniper, right? And you're looking at someone through a sniper, that would be like a long lens,
yeah.
and you're so distant from them, right?
Yeah.
Versus if you had like a magnifying glass and you were right next to the
Yeah.
person,
Yeah.
they're like there,
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
in front of your
And
face.
both are maybe the same size now that you're zoomed in, right? But the
Hmm.
feeling is very different.
Yeah, so you can get the same like framing
Yeah. Yeah.
with,
Yeah.
but it'll feel different.
Ah.
So in the movies where you have like a kidnapping video or someone's like stalking the house and you see like the trees in
They make
front
sure
of
there's a little
them.
little bit of shrubbery so you know that they're
Yeah, and
lurking.
you're looking, you can see into the house and stuff. So they give that's like a far lens type of look,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so that gives the feeling of like this person's on the outside looking in.
Yeah.
Whereas if they had the same type of thing where he's looking at the main character, but like it's everything in front of it's bigger, like it feels closer up.
Yeah.
That feels like they're right there on top of it.
Less
They're
lurky.
yeah, you're like right there with them versus looking on the outside.
Mm,
So you can, I like to think about that is like, okay, why did this person tell the story, put this shot
mm.
like this close up with this lens? What are they trying to tell about, like how the viewer is supposed to interact with the main characters?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, you don't necessarily have to think about that as much with corporate style videos,
No,
but it is
not the
fun
business
on
side.
the creative things because it's like, what is important about this shot?
Yeah.
And how do we tell the story of like, even if it's like a product bottle,
Yeah.
like, okay,
Do
so
we want to be up close and personal with it, or is there something that like
yeah,
chlorine that should be kept at a distance, or I don't
yeah.
know?
And I'm looking like the Stone Brewery,
Yeah.
right? That's a gargoyle, right? And what's the story behind the gargoyle and the brand? And how do we want to tell that feeling of like, of what this person should be feeling while they're drinking this,
Mm.
right? Is it supposed to be upbeat, light beat, light?
Probably not with gargoyle, right?
No, probably
Right.
not gargoyle.
You
So
want dark
how
and
do we get dark? How do we get the lenses that match? Um, and yeah, just for people to
give them
notice.
a free plug. Which way do I need to go?
There you go.
But you can see
Yeah, and so this
the
comes
dark
down.
feeling of it.
This comes,
And
yeah, with story. It comes back to the branding and stuff like that, and thinking of the story that you want to share with your business or your ideal clients, and how do they want to feel? How do you want to make them feel?
yeah,
Usually, people have that already inside them, but they never thought about it on a deeper level.
yeah,
Um, and then I get to decide, like at the end of the day, based on what they've told me, and what the experiences they gone through, and how they help their clients. It's like, okay, you value this, this, and this. Okay, that can be shot in this way, and we want to emphasize this.
yeah.
And
A
we want,
security company versus a daycare company should have probably a very different feeling of
yeah,
what the emotional feeling that they're getting from it, besides what they're just being told, right?
yeah, absolutely. And if I have a business owner who's telling us a sad story about like maybe it's like a death that was the catalyst for them to get into the more the funeral business. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah,
Like I don't think I want to make it, I'm not going to make it super up close. I might start with like a far shot, have them sitting at the desk by themselves through a door
Pondering-ish or
and they're
something.
thinking, it's
Yeah.
isolated.
Yeah,
And you
yeah.
think about the space. So that's really like
Oh,
getting
I love that.
technical. So, but that's the art of it, of just from the choice of the lens, the choice of the lighting and stuff. So that's what I get excited about when I see movies too. I'm like, oh man, I like that. I like how they told this story in a different way, or like
Yeah.
they chose that lens. Interesting. I don't
I
know if I
think
would choose that.
I won't know enough to know which ones they're using, but I think that'll help me be a little more engaged because I think I get bored with the plot quickly, because it's just kind of, to me, it feels like a lot of the same, but it'll be neat to watch for those that
Yeah.
when they break the rules, right? Or
Hmm.
when they break the fourth wall is always fun, but it'll be cool to kind of to think about how those shots are spaced. And even one like I do interviews as part of our SEO strategy, right? That's like our video is just part of one cog in our SEO kind of wheel.
Hmm.
And even with that, I've started saying, "Hey, don't look at the camera," which was from you. You're like, I see it now. Like you talked to me about it when we were doing the interviews for Night for Veterans, right?
Hmm.
And then I started watching interview type stuff on TV, and I was like, this is definitely more. I feel like it's a newer thing, but it's probably just my observation of it, right? But I'm noticing it more and more. So I was like, I'm going to try that, and it feels awkward having told people for 2 years, like, talk to me and I'm gonna stand behind the camera so they feel like they're talking to you. To like now they're talking, I'm like, okay, I'm over here, and like they'll be talking, and they'll like kind of keep looking back at the camera because I've been training them for so long. I was like, no, we're trying this different thing. So,
Yeah.
but I think it'll make it neat because I know when I watched the ones you created for us, I was like, yeah, that feels cooler, and you're not just being like talked at. You know what I mean? It kind of feels like you're part of the conversation, but you're not like a direct thing. Like you're observing a conversation more. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah, absolutely. You're 100%. And it makes I find that style makes people more comfortable and it genuinely can bring out the best authentic answers. So when I'm doing stories, and trying to get the best answers out of them for like a brand video, we already know kind of what we're going to talk about beforehand because
mm,
we go through a deep dive session just to really figure out like the stories. I'm not trying to stump them on the day,
right, right, right. Yeah,
but when they're in front of the camera, lights, camera, action, everyone's all of a sudden suit and tie. Like I gotta
yeah,
be a different way.
yeah,
But you
yeah.
get in a flow state, just like a podcast. Like these cameras are recording us, but once everything's on, it feels just like a
You're just talking.
conversation. Yeah,
Yeah.
just kind of learning. So
Which is why I never wanted to script this. Like I've had people that are coming on, they're like, what's the script gonna be? I was like, no, dude, we're gonna come in, we're just gonna have a conversation. Because
yeah,
that's gonna be better for us, I think. We're not just gonna be robots trying to follow points and, read off of it. We're just gonna have a conversation, see where it takes us.
yeah, yeah. And I 100% do the same thing for my podcast. I'm just like, here's a gist of what we could talk about,
Yeah.
but like, nah, we're gonna go on rabbit holes. Something's gonna pop in my head. I might not even ask any of the questions that I sent you, but
Yeah.
here's the general ballpark of what
Yeah. Oh, if
thinking.
you've got a couple talking points that are important to you to talk about, I'll like be cognitive of them, I'll be aware of them and I'll try,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but it'll go where it goes. So
But yeah, so yeah, no, definitely the interview style stuff is it's great. It feels a little more intimate too when you're talking with them, because you can create eye contact, like you can feel what they're feeling, you can see their emotions pop up, and so I love that part. That's honestly my favorite part of my what I do is getting to understand the business owner and seeing when they're excited and talking about stuff. So,
yeah,
um,
that's my favorite part of the job too. Like I'm curious by nature. So learning about the business, learning about why they do it, how they do it, how they make money, what works for them, what doesn't work for them. That's the fun part for me. Like all the other stuff is we're good at and it's interesting, but it's like getting to geek out on why they do what they do. Even if it's a restaurant or a plumber, like any of it, like all of them have whys and hows and struggles and triumphs and stuff like that. So it's always cool to learn like how their world is.
yeah, absolutely. Everyone has that stuff, and everyone needs to be sharing that. Um,
So the offensive videos, we talked about defensive, and then I took you down a rabbit hole.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Tell me about what an offensive video is.
So offensive video are those when you're trying to acquire new customers. You're
Mm-hmm.
trying to get more views and you're trying to build an audience. So these are advertisements, social media strategy, when you're actively trying to get more and more and more. So I just explained it the other way to a person where it's like, if you have a bucket and it has some holes in it and you're trying to fill water in it, right? The defensive is filling the holes, right? So you can get all the water and get more of the water. And then the offensive is starting to fill it up and fill up your bucket, so to speak.
So so offensive is attracting prospects,
Yeah,
attracting
essentially.
viewers,
Yeah.
right? Whereas defenses is you attract them through maybe your offensive videos or ads or whatever it might be.
Mhm.
And now you're kind of solidifying the relationship and building the trust.
Yeah, absolutely. And they can work hand in hand. But yeah, always just simplifies defense, offensive. Um, and offense, like you're going to be telling stories, right? Of like, if it's an ad, right? We're going to try to sell one specific thing. Most people think when they create an ad, they're trying to sell, like if it's on Facebook, they're trying to sell the product already. Like if it's a service-based business, like trying to, oh, is that where that's it. Okay, interesting. Oh, yeah, there's a rattling here for people
So
who.
yeah, if you're not picking it up at home, it's driving. Sorry, having a little noise OCD day apparently, but like that one's just been ticking away over there.
That's funny. Yeah.
Go on, sorry, go on.
No, but the ad is supposed to sell the next step, not final product.
Yeah, you should be pushing them through the funnel.
Pushing
and
them.
the about video could be, well, you get them to a landing page, it's probably gonna have a shorter closing type of video, but maybe also the about story one is there too, lower or something. I don't know, but
Yeah.
you're moving them through the funnel, not just closing them all and telling the whole story and giving the backstory and giving them a 20-minute video on the initial first impression.
Yeah, absolutely. And like the story that could be told for getting them off the platform is like, okay, well, what's on the other side of the platform?
Yeah, what's the next step? Where do you need to go from
What's the
here?
next step? So what's the story of why they should go to that next step? Why should they get the free advice? Why should they get the free download or
Yeah,
whatever?
whatever lead magnet we're dangling.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever the lead magnet is like, what's the story behind that, and why do they need that? Where is that person at that would want that? What are their problems? How do you solve? Again, same thing in the story arc.
Just a much shorter,
Just a much
attention span
shorter.
to use.
Well, yeah, attention span, but also just like, I mean, if you create something interesting, people will watch. So if you capture their attention, people will watch. But you do have to, when you're on social, you need to capture their attention really, because they're
The first
scrolling.
2 seconds need to engage them. Then you can go from there as long as it makes sense. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then it's your big. It's man, it is really going. I wonder what that is. Maybe it just needs to be tightened up. Yeah.
It's weird.
I feel like the viewers probably won't hear it. I think it's just us.
Put it up there so they can. But anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
Just cut that out. But it's weird because it stops. It must be the air conditioner or something. So you were on attention span before mine got lost to the rattle.
Yeah. No, yeah, attention span. Capturing that on social is really huge because like everyone is numb. Like you go there and you're just scrolling numb, and something's got to interrupt that pattern interrupts.
Yeah.
Whatever pattern interrupts it is, or
some hook to interrupt their pattern.
Yeah, the hook, and it could be a visual hook or like a word hook.
What things have you had success with as far as hooks?
So usually, I mean, for just calling people out like right off the bat, or I've seen a lot of success in people who just like showcase something random. There's more of a trend right now to show something that's like, well, I mean, I haven't necessarily tried it with my clients right now based on, what we're trying to do, but like, this is a big trend. It's like, there's something, I see it all the time, like a car is about to hit them, right?
Oh, the meme followed by them reacting like them doing whatever, like he gets hit by a ball and then they switch to the person going, ah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've seen those a lot too.
And I like to say like hooks, it's not like when you do the advertising campaigns and you're running ads, you're going to get your best guess, you're going to do your hooks, and then the biggest thing is to see where the data says. Because I've run campaigns where I thought like my ad was going to be fucking amazing. Can I pass?
Yeah, absolutely. Fuck yeah.
Yeah, where I thought it was going to be fucking amazing, and I spent a lot of time on it, and this was like
proud of it, love it. It's a piece of art.
Yeah.
It's like,
and then I'm like, oh, this photo's doing better, and I'm like, that makes me sad.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, what about the photo is making this better? Like,
Yeah.
and then I'm gotta like adjust my own video ad. But video ads, they do, if you do it with like the high end stuff, like it can take time and things like
And
that.
money.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so starting to best practice of doing like video ads and running the different hooks is like think of it in boxes, right? You get the box one is the hook, box two is like the main message, right? And then the box three is the call to action for simple terms. um and then now if
If
you
everybody did just those three things with conscious effort, they don't even need the rest of like because most are not even thinking of those three core basic pieces. Come on,
right,
sorry,
yeah, so hook, your story,
yeah.
your
Get
solution,
their attention,
and your
tell them
call to
what's going
action.
on, and then ask them to do something. Like,
Exactly. But if you do it right,
yeah,
then that hook can be interchangeable a lot easier than going in um, needing to change the whole middle because you tied the hook specifically to the middle part.
yeah, yeah.
So it needs to be interchangeable like Lego boxes, Legos. Like my mentor has mentioned this to me. It's got to be like Legos. You got to be able to interchange them real easily.
Your whole business should be in that respect. But yeah,
That's a good point. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
that's yeah, that's definitely something I'm focusing on
It's not
nowadays
easy,
as
but
well.
yeah, but those gears, the Lego pieces, whatever, they need to be. Each block needs to be understood and interchangeable.
Yeah.
Not to devalue them, but they have to be what they are.
No, exactly. And I think for the longest time, the hardest thing I thought about when I read like the E Myth, right? It talks about selling your business, making those like systems and processes, so that way you're not the workings forever. And if you have a business that runs,
We have a machine.
you have a machine and
Yeah,
you run the
fuel
machine.
goes in, money comes out,
Yeah. And
runs in between.
I was like, how do you do that with a creative business?
You do it.
Yeah, but when I first read that, I was like, well, I don't know.
But it's not easy, right?
Right.
Especially since the creative directory, whatever, the artistic part of it, and the back and forth with the consumer, even like websites. Like we have a lot of give and take creatively because
Hmm.
they have a vision of what they want, we know what we want and what we think works or whatever. But I guess I could just say like if you look at Hollywood, like they've got it down, right? They've got the cog is the like they know the roles, and I tell this on this all the time. I had a dude sold cloth diapers. But I was walking around his office one day, and I apologize to viewers because it's probably the fifth time I've told this story on here. But he was walking around. He's like, "Look, this seat does purchasing. This seat does customer service. This seat does this. This seat does this. This seat does this. And I love these people, but I know that as long as I keep these seats filled and I keep those jobs defined, if somebody goes, I can refill that seat, and my company keeps moving. Those are the Legos, right? So
Mm.
those accountability or job description, those roles, and then the systems that support them and the processes that tell them what to do, like those are the Legos that can be defined. And then just making sure that one of those seats is the creative person, right? So the creative person might leave, but if you have certain guidelines and processes in place that they have to follow, and then they apply their brand of genius, right? Like directors as a role, each one has their own, I don't know, art director, like this is beyond my space, but it's a job that gets replaced or picked in every movie. They put their own spin on it, but there's certain limitations to their job that they have to follow that make it so they can go to the next movie, the next movie, the next movie, right?
Yeah, and I see that now.
Right?
Yeah, but when I first read that book like years ago, I was like, how do I?
Yeah.
It just wasn't in my knowledge base. I didn't see enough to understand the stuff that I was reading
Yeah. Yeah.
necessarily.
I feel you.
Because it just felt in my creative mindset at the time, I was like, well, there's so many different avenues I could do. It's so unique. I could be like this. And then, you know, there's certain unique things about it, but got to define stuff for you basically creating little products, right? You got to create the product. Hollywood has a winning formula product. Disney has a winning formula product. And you can actually go find it and read it.
It's a very defined story arc and process and timing of, cameras, like how long you get to look at one thing before they switch to the next one. Like all that stuff's formulaic now.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I'm starting to get to with like brand videos, testimonials, frequent less question process, all that stuff. Like there's a formula for it that doesn't need to be really broken. unless for specific
Well,
circumstances.
but the cool thing is, and I've only worked on like the business systems for myself for the last few years.
Hmm.
And one of the things that in building like the processes and the pieces, it allows you to change out different parts, right? Like if you do have your story videos locked down to this 20 step, 20 types of shot, whatever, right? When you get to a new person, one, you can apply that to them, right? But then each time you make one, you can try like, okay, I'm going to change number 3
Mm.
and try this different approach. And if it works, now 3 stays, right? Now you can do the Lego thing and pull them out and put them in. And with my coach at the time, he was like, I think you need to fire those 2 guys. I was like, you're probably right.
Mm.
Right. It's based on, not based on the people, but based on what roles, the wrong people in the wrong seats or whatever. I was like, that's fair, but I've never given them good leadership. I haven't given them processes. I haven't given them good job descriptions. I haven't made sure they have the tools, right? So for the next year, I like process documented their jobs, put ticketing system, like put all the tools in place so that now I'm like, okay, they now have everything they need and they're interchangeable, right? Now I can decide if they stay or go. They're not with me, but it's more that they had different things they should be doing as opposed to being like bad employees or bad people. You know what I mean? They're both really good people I still talk to, but I knew now that like now that I can track these things and KPIs and all that kind of stuff,
Hmm.
I can say, okay, these are not the right people for this, and switch them out. But back to what that Lego thing is and what you're saying about the stories, you can swap them out. Going back a little bit though, a cool one that I think would be for the viewers too is you mentioned looking at the data, right? We're all about you should get your reports, know your numbers, make your adjustments based on your numbers. What are some of the tools that you use and some of the metrics that you look at to gauge a defensive and offensive video success?
Yeah. So first and foremost, when putting for a defensive video, like say a brand video, the easiest tool is using this website called Wistia. And just simply having that platform instead of putting it on YouTube is a huge game changer because of all the stats that you get behind it.
It
Right.
lets you stick in like call to actions and stuff too, right? Is it what you do
Yeah,
that?
you
Yeah.
can you can put links at the end of it. You can change your brand colors to match. The cool thing though is also like looking at how many people have been watching for how long. So I've used that for like a specific sales campaign to advertising campaign where I have a sales video on the landing page. Like I want to know, is the hook for this video good?
Yeah, which Lego are they falling off? Which Lego are they stepping on and then leaving?
Which part are they falling off?
Yeah.
Exactly. Um, but so that would be like the number one thing because I still see like most people put their videos on a YouTube thing.
Well, we do. So now
Yeah.
the question for that, does the do and I don't know the answer. It's
Hmm.
not a leading question. Like do those stats outweigh the benefits of getting the views and the SEO juice from pulling those views onto YouTube? Because that's why we put it there, right? Google owns YouTube. Views matter. It's part of the metrics that help it rank better, help it rank on search, help it rank in YouTube search. So we
Yeah.
want as many views funneled through those videos as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Let
But
me
does it?
let me back up because I don't want to sound like YouTube is bad to put on your website because it's not.
Right.
It's not going to defer it. But if you're having a SEO strategy that's like, okay, we're going to put this on the blog and we want it to match with the YouTube, right? The one problem with YouTube is like it takes you away. It can take you away from the platform. You can change that in the settings at the very
It's
end.
harder and harder,
So,
but yeah.
yeah, but ideally you can like make them choose what video they want to watch. I use Wistia very intentionally about for things where I don't want them to leave.
YouTube is okay
Yeah,
in
YouTube
like
is
a
a good.
blog post SEO strategy. Wistia is ideal if you're running landing pages, want to keep them on the platform, keep them wherever you're putting the videos, and see where they're falling off
Yeah.
in the funnel. Like, are they getting through the hook and then getting stuck in the content, or are they getting through the hook and the content and getting stuck in the call to action and not converting?
Hmm.
And it'll track so if you embed, I don't know if Wistia does it, but there's some that'll let you like do some branching stuff, which is something I want to play with. But if you do
Like,
have links at the end, will it track those for you so you can see like the conversions on the call to action too, on Wistia at least?
yeah, it should be. Most people don't end up clicking that, so I don't say I have like enough like data to be like that was worth it because it's still the buttons on the page.
Yeah, and if you have a landing page, you're hoping to convert them to a lead there,
Right.
right? So whatever.
Absolutely.
There's one I'll have to find it, but I was looking at one where it will do like branching. It'll do
Hmm.
like email gates mid video.
Yeah.
So like some of those things might be fun to try.
Yeah, there's some other platforms too that I haven't tested. I have a friend who's tested a different like video platform that halfway through it'll pop up with like an email thing, and
Yeah.
if continue put your email here to continue to watch it and
Yeah.
stuff, and so that's like all like the minutia like advanced strategy stuff to
Yeah.
like
It's stuff I want to play. There was one like
oh
one of
yeah
the examples was they were talking about shirts and they're like, do you like red shirts or Hawaiian shirts? And then you pick it,
mm,
and then it could pick between the two videos based on your answers. So when you go to the
mm,
next one, now they're wearing a Hawaiian shirt.
yeah
So like if somebody wanted to get complicated, which I'm not doing this right now, but like, are you having let's say you're a plumber, like are
mm,
you having a low water pressure or a leak? You know what I mean? And you click it and it'll be like, boom, hey, if you got a leak.
right
So it
yeah
could be something to
qualifying. I wonder if I mean you could probably do that with like a different like job form or something like that, or like a website specific
yeah, except
to
that would be more like taking you another page where this one you feel like you never left the video.
feel like I developed the video.
Yeah, you're in the same box.
No, I haven't
It's
looked at
just
that one.
switching and it just feels fluid.
Hmm.
So if I remember the name, I'll
Yeah,
send you a link because it's something interesting.
yeah, it is something
There's
interesting.
so many tools and options out there though that it's like
Yeah,
you could spend all your time just looking at stuff
I
and
know.
trying things.
And just thinking about like the different ways you can run like paid ads, like there's a lot,
Yeah.
and not every there's so many different little strategies out there that work, and it's
And they might not be like that's the hard part is like one strategy will work. Like our strategy for dentists works really well for dentists. We applied it to plumbers. Obviously not the same messaging or whatever, right? But basically the same tools, the same channels, not the same at all. You know what I mean? So like trying the same things, it's, industry matters, region matters. Like there's so many variables you got to consider.
yeah, and you guys would know that you guys are running a lot of ads for dentists. I have not run ads for dentists, so I don't know.
It's saturated. It's getting
Mm.
harder and harder and more expensive. So that's where
Oh
some
yeah.
of these like more creative things come into, and kind of why we're probably shifting more towards a quality content creation strategy versus a lead generation strategy. Because it's so, even when we generate, like we had one dentist, like they paid 150 grand over the year with ads and everything, generate like 750,000 in revenue, which is like, I think they'd be great. It's not making them enough money. So,
Mm,
or another one where they get like 100 leads, but they don't convert.
mm,
You know what I mean? And everything is the same between them. So it's like, it's so hard to control the variables of is the lead going to convert and churn in a good ROI that, and it's so much of it's in their hands, right? But we're tied to the results that I really want to try to put more focus on giving people quality solutions, kind of the anti AI, take your video, make content, make it from you, be the subject matter expert, give Google its eats and all that kind of stuff.
yeah, yeah. Because as AI gets bigger, human needs for humans
Yeah.
becomes bigger as well. We want that human connection, and that's like the other superpower that I've always been talking about, like with video content, and like when I interview someone, I'm trying to get the most authentic answers out of them. Because I've always told someone, you can feel someone through a lens,
Mm.
feel the emotion through the screen,
Yeah.
and if you're watching your favorite, TV star or movie star, like you feel like you know them, you feel like you know how they're gonna act.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, Tom Hanks, he's probably going to act like this. Oh, I'm going to love it. I
Yeah.
know like his stuff.
Yeah.
And then when they do something off their brand, which is not something in their wheelhouse, you're like, this doesn't feel right.
Like the
This
first
doesn't
time
feel.
I watched was it Jim? Which one did the photo, the Polaroid develop? I think it might have been, it was either, anyway, a comedian,
Mhm.
maybe Jim Carrey, maybe not. But anyway, like comedy, comedy, comedy. And then all of a sudden, like a dark one. I was like, oh, it was a good movie, it turned out. But you're going into that, like, you're always going to be the funny guy to me. So it's kind of
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, that's a tough thing. I think, oh my gosh, the actor who did Twilight, um, and then he's Batman now, Robert Patterson.
Huh.
Um, yeah, there's a whole talk of because people haven't seen he's been doing like deeper, darker movies that just haven't been like a list, like top of the
Yeah.
line that everyone's talking about. But being Batman, that's huge. And most people knew him from being a Twilight, the
Teenage
vampire,
bopper, but
yeah, teen
vampire.
vampire. So the whole talk was like, oh, is this going to be on brand? Are we going to like it?
Yeah.
And there's always mixed opinions. I thought he did a fantastic job of it. I was like, damn, this is impressive. Like, good for him.
That's wild. Robin Williams is what I was trying to think of.
Oh
He
yeah.
did that weird one where he's like a developer like a Polaroid negatives developer at a store, but he was like a serial killer. I don't know, something weird.
Oh, that's
But it was
interesting.
very different for like what you'd expect from him, right? But
Yeah.
um, yeah, I think that it's interesting how those things kind of play out and what people emotionally and body language wise just kind of bring it back, right? Like you get all of those things that you get sitting across from somebody in a video where you don't get them in an email or an article or a post or whatever, right? In words, you get the facial expressions, the body language, that you get all those cues that you don't even think about normally conversing with somebody that you get in a video.
Yeah. And then on top of that, like scripts. Everyone always asks me, should I script my video or should I? Yeah, you get this all the time. I bet like script it or not script it. And man, it depends. If if I'm doing a brand video and I'm trying to get your real story, I don't want you to script it. But with that being said, beforehand,
Yeah,
let's prepare as much as we can. It's my job to ask the right questions that pull the right answers out.
yeah.
And if I don't think we're getting the right soundbite, I might just be like, "Hey, say these words," or like,
I'll correct people. So yeah, I said to everybody, I tell everybody I'm not going to give you a script. It's just because you're just reading and it's so robotic and all that body language and eye contact. News reporters do it okay, but you can still tell they're reading, right? So
yeah,
I send them the questions ahead of time, like, here's what we're going to talk about, review it. Also, because I want you to be able to point me towards B-roll stuff, right? Like we're talking about manufacturing, be ready for me to film something in the warehouse or somebody building something, whatever, right? But yeah, read through those questions. I'll ask the questions and then same thing, like they'll go and it's like, all right, that was perfect, but now do it this long instead of this long, right? Or just like, the call to action, you don't have to give them every point of contact and every email address in the company. Just give them a nice, quick little, like, so some of that
just
coaching for
yeah,
sure. Redo it, redo it, redo it. And it's funny because you'll get some people, they'll go through all the questions fine. And then when you ask them to start revising what they've said, it just starts falling apart. Like they get in their head, they start thinking it all through ahead of time instead of just talking. But I definitely feel that you get the most genuine interaction with them when I'm like, just talk like you're a customer. I'll ask you a question, just answer the question to me like I was a customer. This is what you're passionate about. This is stuff you know. You don't have to write it down or you're probably not good at it, like the job, you know what I mean, at the surface or whatever. So,
yeah. I think for paid ads, I've had people we've scripted it out. So I write all the copy and everything like that, but I have them like practice it,
mm,
and I got to coach them through like where's the important parts to be inflect,
yeah,
right, and
yeah.
stuff like that. So, and the reason why I script things out with that, um, and not every ad needs to be scripted, but sometimes um, I want to, and we need the words exactly like
No,
this,
yeah,
right?
that's different. Like
100%
the
different.
majority of our videos is to create a blog article,
Yeah.
right? I mean, and we just want them to talk about then they're going to, I don't have to give them keywords because they're going to say things about their services that have the right words in them, right?
Hmm.
But I agree with you. If you're trying to make a 15-second ad and you have those Legos and you have those specific, the hook,
You
the
need the
content,
script.
the pain points, whatever, and then the clear call to action. Yeah, here's the script, practice it. You might deviate a little bit on it, but like and like you said, it allows you to come back now and say, okay, that one didn't hit. Let's keep A, B, and C and change D, right? But that's only going to work with a script, not them freeforming it every single time. There's no continuity.
Yeah, absolutely. And the teleprompter helps with the script, but like just practicing and practicing, and because like I mean actors have script, right? But they practice and practice and practice and memorize, and then
Yeah,
they understand like where to add emotion at this point and
yeah.
where to, pause for this point. Um, and that's my job to direct,
Mm.
on the other end of like, okay, hey, you ran through this sentence way too fast and it sounded like awful
Yeah,
or
it
something like
sounded
that.
rushed. And I hate to do that to people, but like, sorry, buddy, that one was garbage. and
Yeah.
I'll be direct. I'll make them laugh because they'll be more comfortable. Yeah, you'll be like, that wasn't it, buddy.
I'm like, yeah, you sucked at this one, but I know we can do this.
Yeah.
I know you can do this. I've seen you do it. And yeah, every time you get someone to loosen up and laugh, and it makes it a little bit easier. Um, but yeah, for the most part, 100%. Don't script your videos. If anything, if you're doing a social media post, like you can write out your thoughts, and then you could try to do a teleprompter for you to make it easier and stuff like that, or just put the points and play around with it for yourself. I found, I mean, personally, I know how to like read scripts and stuff like that. So for me, if I don't like to, I can go off on tangents.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
No, not you.
yeah, no, not Raymond. He
Wait,
does
weird.
not do tangents. So like I'll go be going through the video and then I'll get distracted. I'm like, where was the end point?
Yeah.
So that's a you learn yourself when you're practicing,
Yeah.
but
But then you
that
just do your own retakes, like
you
your own
do your own
stop,
retakes,
redo.
and everything can be edited. So,
There's only one person that I've seen do a decent job off the scripting that I know personally, and that's Derek. Like
oh
he'll
yeah,
he'll script some of his and he reads them well. I can still tell he's reading. It's still a little bit stiff, if I'm being honest. And I tell him to his face too, but he does a good job with that. When I do my weekly videos, when I was doing them, I would give myself like the key talking points, especially if I want to like mention specific tools or specific stats. So I have like a one sheet that's kind of like, each main topic, and I'll just kind of talk about what I know about each topic, which is the same thing as guiding somebody with a specific question
hmm
in an interview, right? So those main talking points, subjects to cover. But I've tried reading before, and it's just, especially me, it's terrible. It's not good. And maybe a teleprompter would help some, but I don't know. It's just too
hmm
rigid, right?
yeah. When I feel rigid, I just remind myself to come with the energy.
Come with the energy.
Yeah, just like because if I don't bring energy to it, like it's
Yeah.
dead.
Yeah. Yeah. That's another one. Smiling, right? Constantly reminding people I'm filming to smile. Like, not like
Yeah,
talking the whole time, but like act like you're happy to be telling this if it's relevant. Obviously, if you're talking about
no,
the funeral guy, no. But
right, right, right,
but if
right.
you're telling somebody why you're great and whatever, you should be happy about how proud you are of your company or whatever, right? And have the relevant emotion, I guess. But most of the business stuff, you're not telling downer stories, so you should be smiling in between and uh, yeah, and pausing before you start correcting yourself, because otherwise your face is gonna be distorted when I edit it, that kind of stuff. But so what it was e-myths, and kind of it's interesting to see how you're kind of going through that process, and that most people go through as they're trying to figure out how to build a sellable thing, right? So um besides kind of like laying out the different jobs and roles and contractors and internals or whatever, what are some of the things that you found, maybe like two or three things that you learned and applied to your business that you think have had like the biggest impact on your success? This is where sending the question ahead of time might have helped.
Probably. Two or three things that have helped me in my business.
Yeah.
First and foremost is learning from people who've done what I want to do, just asking them questions
Yeah.
and being unafraid of looking good,
Yeah. Be vulnerable
being
with
vulnerable
those people.
with those people.
Not everybody maybe, but yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, good set of vulnerability. I used to be embarrassed of a lot of stuff, and yeah, uh, have had to go through my own deep journey
Mhm.
to find my own like self confidence and being okay with being wrong, you know.
Yeah.
But I remember the first time I invested into like a coach and to like a course. 'Cause everything I know is through online courses, YouTube, and trial and error.
Same. Yeah. 100%.
So
I got 2 weeks of degrees, 2 weeks of college ever.
oh,
So,
nice. I have a full degree
okay. Okay.
in
Good for you.
biomedical science
Oh, snap.
for
You
those.
got a fancy degree. I went to 2 weeks of health.
Yeah, I love what I did. I'm very fascinated with all biology and things like that. Cell biology also was really fascinating for me.
Interesting. Well, let's not go down that rabbit
Yeah,
hole
I
because
know.
that sounds like a big one.
It is.
So, being vulnerable and learning from other people, which I know you do a lot with EO, right?
hmm
And for me, that's been like learning that even like the multi-millionaire businesses have a lot of the same problems and mistakes and stuff has helped, I think, for me at least, with that vulnerability. Like, oh shit, everybody goes through a lot of the same struggles and ignorant on a lot of the same topics or what's relevant to them. So it's not as bad as you want to go into those groups when you first show up and you're like, I know everything. I'm good. I'm the best. You want to refer to me and I don't make any mistakes. And you're like, start to realize like, oh, we're all kind of screwed up. So we could figure this out together.
Yeah, 100% makes me feel more comfortable. And it also the first time was very surprising. I was like, oh, they're all having, I think it was like vacations. There was like a health person that came to an EO event, and they're talking about like who here has had a vacation where they could completely, you know, cut off from everything and not think about their business and
Nobody
not be
raises
so,
their hand.
and one person. I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
huh.
Oh,
And it made me think of like, okay, how do I want to build my business so if I have all the money, but I don't have the time where I want
What's
to
the
do
point?
it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And one thing that I love from my mentor, he has this thing called professional bronzing, where considered himself a professional bronzer. That is his profession. But
He's a spray tan guy.
he just sits outside and enjoys the sun, and
Okay. Okay. Okay.
it's like a retirement like
Nice.
mindset of like, oh, is this going to take me away from bronzing,
Yeah. Yeah.
from
Yeah.
chilling?
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
I don't want to do it. And so for that was his drive into building the systems, and like he could build the business where he's at right now and make a lot more money. But he's like, am I gonna have to do all the
That's all right.
I just touch the table. Don't touch the
No
table.
touchy.
Is he going to like scale the business, but that's gonna put a lot of time and effort on his end,
Yeah.
where his priority is bronzing.
So he wants a lifestyle business, not a
So
scalable, huge beast.
well, he wants the engine, right? So his thing is like, if I could stay the same, stay the same income level, but then everything just becomes more efficient, and he can do less and less for it to work, then that's what he's going to do. So he can go off on a 2-3 week vacation a month. He actually works. He runs his whole creative agency pretty much out of an RV most of the time.
That's a
Like,
dream. I had that dream a long time ago, but not happening for me.
yeah, everyone has different dreams, but I mean, he has an apartment now too, but he still has the RV and he can go travel all over, and he's created these systems. That's like more systems than I have. And he's my mentor. I'm trying to learn from him on how to do that. Because there's a lot of the back end of a creative business of just like, okay, where does the files go and how does everyone organize the files? And if you have 10 editors and a project manager, like, okay, and I leave to go do something and come back and I need to fix something, where is everything at? And, I need to understand everything. So,
Yeah, naming conventions for the files all down. Yeah, there's a lot.
yeah, there's a lot of stuff. And when you're being able to have like the project manager in one city, your editors in a different city, and you're trying to go somewhere else, like there's more systems that need to be in place
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. And so that's like just basically come back to like modeling after them and learning after that. Like when I invested in myself I mean, I got a course on how to like create videos to sell, and I couldn't sell for 6 months. I was like getting in all these rooms. I was doing all these cold calls, these cold video messaging, and people would invite me in, get into the sales meetings, and then nothing, nothing, nothing.
Then roll the pen and get the close.
And then when I my mentors at that time, like they opened a new course, but with that course came one-on-one mentorship.
Mm.
Um, it was like the first little group meeting, and the consensus over the room was like how to sell, and he helped me like understand what the other person was really wanting and getting into their shoes.
Mm-hmm.
And the next day I sold my first brand video for like $2,500,
Nice.
and I was like,
I could do it.
I can do this. So like that's been huge.
Yeah.
So always just working on myself and modeling from what other people are doing.
So I think some of the big takeaways there is like lifelong learning,
Mhm.
right? Being vulnerable, and then standing on the shoulders of giants, right? Like looking at what other people are doing and not being afraid to learn from them and apply it to yourself and being open minded in that respect, right?
Yeah.
And then what's the second one? You said there's two. That was the first one, and that was good.
Yeah, that was a good long one. There's a lot of stuff in there.
Actually, we could say that there was two or three actually in there. I said all three of them, right? Like lifelong learning is something that affects. And as long as I've known you, you're always on self improvement, whether it's spiritually, personally, business wise. Like that's something I've always admired about you. Being vulnerable is something that is not always easy, especially like to succeed in business, you got to be a little bit of a type A with a little bit of an ego, right? Like to some extent. So being vulnerable to people is hard. And when it comes to video, being vulnerable in video can be very powerful, but also very hard, right? Because now you're thinking about sharing your stories with millions of people, but there's value in that. And then having like I have a mentor, I have an accountability group through EO, like having people that you can share stories with, commiserate with, celebrate with, learn from their good and their bads, right? Learn from their mistakes and their successes.
Mhm.
That's huge. Yeah. So I think you really gave us three really good things that people should be mindful of when they're trying to succeed in their business.
Yeah. I think the other biggest thing is learning how to listen
Mm.
better. I remember one time I was in my own head. I was kind of like deep in it, and my buddy and I were on a walk, and he was talking and talking, and then I think I was just like not actually listening. I wasn't present, and I just said something like that had to do with me. I was like very egocentric, and then he called me out on it.
You're like,
Um,
oof.
and he's like, "Why do you always do that?" Like, I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, you've been like lately. You've been doing just like it's like you're not listening to me." I was like, "Oh shit." And then I had to really take a step back and think about it. And I think about like, you know, in my past, where that has been a value for me is like protection from like family drama and stuff like
Mm.
that to avoid pain. But, it doesn't do great when you're trying to build connection with people um, and truly listen to them because there's through some of my this program called LifeWorks, we talk about hearing versus listening.
Hmm.
Everyone hears, like you can hear everything, but are you truly there listening with commitment? Is what we talk about.
Yeah, there's like four levels of even listening, right? And like
Right.
engaged being the highest one, where you're
Yeah.
actually listening to what they're saying and not thinking about what you're going to say back, right?
Hmm.
Versus not listening at all because your mind's on a million things in your business, right? Like, yeah, that's tough. I get it.
Yeah. So I think that was a good spark for me where I was like, okay, where am I not listening and catching myself when I'm not listening?
Mm.
I think that's the hardest part is catching yourself. Meditation helps and stuff like that for me, but just being aware at first and foremost, and then foremost, I think I lisped there.
It's okay.
Okay,
It's
first
okay.
and
Don't worry about
foremost. um, but yeah, taking a stance for myself and for the people I'm with
it. Yeah.
to make sure I'm there.
And that's not just a business, like, it's such a
That's a
good
life.
life lesson,
Yeah.
right? Like, even in my EO accountability group, like, we rate the meeting at the end from like a 1 to 10. I gave it a 7 because I was like, I had so many things in my head
Mm,
that it was hard to be present. You know what I mean? To be actively listening, engaged listening. Because every time I'd start listening, and then I'd be like, oh, I got to do that part number thing. I got to do that. You know what I mean? And my brain starts, and I'm like, pull it back, right? But yeah, even all through life, and especially when a lot of this is hopefully for entrepreneurs. This podcast, right? And like you literally have so many hats and so many things going on that you have to take care of or be mindful of or control or guide or whatever, right? That there's a million things in your brain at every single moment. So to be aware enough to like step back and just, okay, what are they talking about? Why are they talking about it? What's going on with them versus like, how do I listen and then just give them a response and move on to the next thing? Yeah, that's cool. That's a good one.
yeah. And that comes to like being able to focus on the one thing. I've been, my girlfriend thinks I have ADHD, but I don't know. Could be.
I would guess, as somebody that has it, I would say it's possible, buddy,
Yeah, quite as possible.
with no judgment. It
Yeah, no, no.
helps.
I had a guess that says it's a superpower, so I'm like, fuck yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
we
superpower.
used to guard the villages because we paid attention to everything. We got this being distracted by the shinies was a superpower more then than now, and
Oh,
like,
that's interesting.
and it helps us multitask. Like, so
Okay.
it's different, but you got
Yeah.
to embrace it. You gotta have your list and stuff so you remember through everything and you remember to close the cabinets or whatever, like before you get distracted. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of value in it too.
Yeah. And I say what I've been practicing is to figure out what the best thing to do is for the day.
Mm.
Right. I was listening to like a Tim Ferriss talk about like if this was the one thing that you could get done today and you'd be happy with, like what would that be?
Yeah,
And if you were to do that one thing, would that one thing make everything else on your to-do list either easier or unimportant? That's been a challenge
mm.
for sure, but it's a good practice and reminder when I'm looking at my to-do list. I'm like, is this the most effective
Yeah.
and important? So,
Highest value thing. Jack Daly's was the highest value
mm,
item. Um, I forget where he caught it, but Derek's coach, Bernie Powers, you know Bernie. He always gave out the Eat the Frog notebook. Like you pick that one thing.
Yeah.
It might not be the funnest thing to do, but it's the most important thing. So make sure you get it done first so you get it out of the way. Yeah, that all makes sense. So we are, where are we at? Just wedge a stack of hundreds in there.
Yeah.
Big hundreds, obviously. Where are we at?
It's
Hour
almost 6.
exactly.
Nice.
Look at that. Well, we had a lot of interruptions, so we can go a little bit longer if you want. If we got more to talk about, probably another
Sure.
10 or 15 minutes.
You got any more questions, or what do you find is what have you been learning the most through EO so far? Because you're in the accelerated program. I'm not there yet.
Yeah, there's, bro. It's definitely not ignoring noises. I learned that. I don't know why it's suddenly loose. See that?
Yeah, it just needs a screw down.
Anyway, probably I think it's focus and goals, right? Like the great thing about like an accountability group, probably a forum, is you have these deep conversations with people in similar situations, similar revenue amounts, especially in EO Accelerator, which is 300 to a million, um, and you start to identify what the real problems are, and then you're accountable to, like, if you, let's say we talk about both these guys that I was talking about earlier, like they finally got let go because of the accountability group. Like, okay, you've clearly identified this as a problem. You think it's holding you back in these areas. Fix it. And when you come back, like if you haven't fixed it, now you've got 5 people in the room going, we all agreed and it's clearly a problem, but you're avoiding fixing it. Why? You know what I mean? So like man up and fix it, or woman up and fix it, whatever you want to say. So I think that kind of like goal setting, having focus, prioritizing the on the business stuff as opposed to the in the business stuff, like those are all things that I've learned a lot from EO, and just being around more successful people, right? Like the cool thing with EO is, even like the accountability group, the 5 EOA accelerator members are all of similar revenue, right? But then we've got 2 people in there. One's got like a $60 million a year fiber optics manufacturing business. Another one's got like 8 businesses around the pool industry, making tens of millions himself. You know what I mean? So like, so they're still giving their feedback, and again, it kind of, it definitely makes it less painful when you're making mistakes, because you have this guy with a $60 million business that's struggling with some of the similar issues. With, they might be on a different scale, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, but maybe building those structures for my 5 people versus his 80 people, but there's a lot of similarities there. So, but if I was to pick one thing, I think it's really the goal setting and being accountable to those goals, and then making sure you prioritize those tasks that are going to work through those goals. And that's kind of like back to that whole EOS rock thing. The rocks are the big goals, the pebbles are the day-to-day tasks, the sands are the phone calls and the emails that aren't really that important. And the way they demonstrate is, if you take a big vase or whatever and you dump all the sand in, then you dump the pebbles in, the rocks aren't going to fit, right? But if you put the rocks in and then you pour the pebbles in, they're going to settle around the rocks. Pour the sand in, the sand's going to settle around, and now everything fits, right? So it's really just, it's really just making that priority shift and trying to work on the business. And it's a learning thing, and it's a mindful thing, but like, as soon as we're out of here, I'm doing client work. You know what I mean? So I have a new product offering that I need to make a landing page for, refine the offer, name it, create the agreement, like, so I've got all that to do. And I just need to make sure that I'm setting realistic, smart goals, right? Like timeline wise, like not saying I got a new product offering, it's going to be live. What's this, February, March 1st, right? Knowing that I have all this client work to do, the team to manage, but I still have to accomplish this, give myself a more realistic goal of maybe April 1st, right? And then I have time to build everything right versus rushing it out there. So just really managing those priorities and those goals, I think, is one of the biggest things I've learned. And they're on top of a million things. Every time I go to an EO learning day, an accountability group, I leave with 5 new books to read and listen to. I listen in my car, but there's always ones. And one that you might dig, I'm listening to right now, I don't remember the author, but it's Lean Thinking. And it's really more about manufacturing. But when you're talking about like building out that video process, it's really taking the time to look at each step that needs to be created, right? And who's going to be accountable for them, and then making sure they're dependent. Like, so for an example, right, let's not, like, you've sold it, you've set the meeting, whatever, but the first thing is choosing the topic, creating a script, sending the script, filming, putting the footage into the right folder, right? You mentioned that earlier, right? Updating the status of the stick, creating like we use tickets, so we'd have tickets for each one of these, but making sure they're dependent, right? So just having that funnel, but lean is really about making sure that you're not doing a lot of extra waste, right? Like if they call it muda, it's Japanese for waste, but like if you don't put the files in a consistent structure and one of your editors or your project manager has to spend an extra 10 minutes finding the files because it's not following the normal convention that everybody's supposed to follow, that's wasted time, right? So really looking at each piece of the product, each step in the process, and making sure it's as efficient as it can be, and that the next one doesn't trigger till the first one's done. And having like it's like this new product offering I'm going to do. I'll show you when we go in the next room, but I've listed the 15 steps, top level steps that they're going to flow through that process. And then now I'll think about, what tickets to be made, what kind of follow up, who's accountable by role, right? It's not Joe's accountable, it's video editor, right? So who gets assigned to might depend on workload, but it's the video editor. That's the cog that can be interchanged. So I think that'd be a good book. I'll give you the name, but it's interesting to think about it that way. It's all comes from Toyota and their whole, instead of making 5,000 bumpers and putting them in a warehouse, it's really like demand driven manufacturing. It's manufacturing, but somebody orders a bumper, it triggers the process versus we have 5,000 bumpers that we hope we sell and 3,000 we get thrown away or whatever.
Yeah. So, I like that.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Lean and mean.
Right? And and looking at that for how you pick your team, cash flow, like all those things, being lean is useful at our size, right? Every dollar matters. So
yeah, totally get that.
Yeah. Well, I think that'll be a nice place to wrap it up. I'm not dodging you on doing your podcast. I knew I need to get on the calendar. If I showed you my calendar right now, I think you'd understand a little bit, but also say, stop BSing and get in here. Right. So yours will be virtual though, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to make it a lot easier. I'll get on there and we'll get it filmed.
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming out. You're coming out from Redlands. It's not a small drive. It's raining outside. Nobody will know that right now, but it's dumping down. You came out. So I really appreciate that. I appreciate your friendship, your advice. I've called you a few times. Those new Rode mics, the go-to, is that right? Phenomenal, right? So nice to be able to plug that in and have two people with good sound quality using the lapel mics, not just the box. So I love that I can call you for advice, and we can, every time we have lunch, we can talk about the woes and the wins. So appreciate you, man.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate being on. Thanks.
No problem.